A shout cut through the lobby of Halston Grand, sharp and cold like a blade. "Get out, and take off the uniform." Everyone turned. The man in the porter's uniform stood still, sweat on his forehead glinting under the chandeliers. In front of him, the regional director smiled with mockery. A VIP guest laughed, a sound that sliced like humiliation. No one knew. The man being fired in front of them was the one who built this very hotel. No one knew. The white gloves falling to the floor once symbolized trust and respect. This story isn't about service or power. It's about how a person can keep dignity, even when everything is taken away. And if I told you that just a few hours later the man they shamed would return, not for revenge, but to teach them what it truly means to live with respect by default, would you dare to watch till the end? The lobby hummed like an orchestra of metal, suitcases, and suffocating laughter. Golden light shimmered across the polished floor, where people moved fast, like actors in a luxury play. But beneath that glitter, no one saw the crack in the air. A champagne bottle popped, foam spilled, dripping over the porter's white gloves. The sound was soft, yet it made the whole lobby turn. Darren turned too, his voice louder than the music. "What did you just do?" Elliot bowed his head, hand holding the bottle slipping from the silver tray. "I'm sorry, sir. The guest bumped into me." "Don't make excuses." Darren cut him off, lips tight. His voice carried across the marble like a whip. "This hotel does not tolerate mistakes from the lowly." The air froze. Guests stepped back slightly. Lily, the young receptionist, held her breath. Melissa, the shift manager, stood farther away, wanting to intervene, but Darren's stare pinned her still. Elliot said nothing. He stayed bowed, calm, silent. His hand gripped the tray, then released it. Darren's voice grew colder than stone. "Get out, and take off the uniform." A few guests chuckled, laughter slicing through the space like blades. Elliot straightened. The golden light fell across his sun-worn face. No anger, no tremble, only a strange calm in the eyes of someone who had survived too many storms. He removed his white gloves, finger by finger, as if peeling away memories. Rough hands appeared beneath, older, truer. One glove dropped to the floor, the sound tiny, yet it traveled far. It rolled gently and stopped at Lily's feet. No one knew the man they were humiliating was the one who had built this place. No one knew those very hands that once placed every stone, hung every chandelier, wrote the first lines of Halston Grand's service philosophy. Now he stood there, a stranger in the kingdom he had created. Darren stepped closer, low enough for others to hear. "You don't belong here. This hotel needs perfection, not broken hands." Elliot lifted his eyes, steady and unshaken. "Perfection can't save a frozen heart." Darren paused half a second, then scoffed. "Leave before I call security." Elliot nodded. No protest. He picked up the fallen glove, brushed the dust off, and folded it neatly. Each fold slow, precise, like a ritual from a man who once saw pride in this craft. He placed the gloves on the reception counter. Lily saw it. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't speak. Melissa lowered her gaze, afraid to be dragged into the storm. Darren turned his back. "Someone clean this up." Elliot walked toward the door. His shadow stretched across the marble, merging with the shimmer of chandeliers. No one spoke. Only the wheels of suitcases kept rolling, as if nothing had happened. When the lobby doors closed behind him, the echo rose like a distant wave. Elliot stopped at the steps. The wind brushed past, carrying perfume and exhaust. He breathed in, eyes on the gold plaque above the door. The words, "The Halston Grand," reflected in his eyes, trembling like old memories waking up. They didn't know. The man they had shamed had built the very walls around them. They didn't know. Their pride now stood on the foundation of his sweat and hands. Elliot smiled softly, not sad, just quiet. Maybe it's time they learn what true elegance means. He turned away, his figure fading under the streetlights. A breeze swept through, knocking the gloves off the counter again. The fabric touched the floor, soft as a warning. Inside, Lily looked around, picked them up, her hands trembling. She didn't know why her heart ached. Melissa stood behind the counter, whispering to herself. They just fired a true gentleman. Outside, Elliot's footsteps blended into the night. The last light slid across his face, quiet as a man carrying a storm no one could see. No one understood. That moment was the beginning of a quake in their glittering world. A storm that wouldn't shatter glass, but it would shatter how people see each other. In Elliot's memory, there was the scent of wood wax, new carpet, and the sound of leather shoes in early mornings. He had once been a poor bellboy, his uniform worn, a button loose, his smile always genuine. Back then, the Halston Grand was just a small hotel. No chandeliers, no golden lobby, only the dreams of people who still believed in kindness. One old evening, the young Elliot carried luggage for an elderly guest. The man placed a hand on his shoulder, speaking slowly. You work with your heart. Remember, elegance isn't about price. Elliot nodded, clutching the wrinkled tip in his small hand. Inside, a promise was born. One day, I'll build a place where everyone is respected. Now, that promise lay quiet in a cold office. Everything gleamed, from the ebony desk to the numbers glowing across the screen. The assistant reported record revenue, profit beyond forecast, and shareholders pleased. But Elliot's eyes stopped at a small line below. Employee complaints up 37%. He leaned back, silent. The hum of the air conditioner filled the room, like the breath of something that had lost its soul. On the wall hung a black and white photo of opening day. Young faces, proud eyes, white gloves holding tight. Elliot touched the frame. Inside it, the young man still smiled, still believed in the simplest truth of the craft. Melissa had sent an email requesting to adjust the night shift policy. Her message was short. Staff are exhausted. They need a break, even 10 minutes. Darren skimmed it, raised an eyebrow. No time for feelings. Halston is about efficiency. He pressed delete. Elliot saw the deletion notice. His chest tightened. He asked softly, Do you ever wonder why people work without joy anymore? Darren smirked. Joy doesn't pay bills, sir. Elliot only nodded. He knew that conversation would lead nowhere. On his desk sat a small, worn folder. Inside were handwritten thank you notes from staff long ago. Thank you for calling me by name, not by title. Thank you for asking how my mother's doing. Elliot read each line, then closed the file. Light reflected off the glass table, outlining his aging face, eyes still bright. He sighed, his voice barely above a whisper. Hospitality used to mean heart. The words floated in the silent room, like a prayer. Outside, phones kept ringing. Stocks, contracts, parties. Noise everywhere, and none of it real. Through the window, he saw tiny figures of staff lining up for the shuttle. The lobby lights cast over tired faces. He realized he no longer knew a single name among them. A voice echoed inside him, deep and old. You promised to build a place where everyone is respected. He answered quietly, almost a confession. I know, and I let it drift too far. Elliot stood, walked to his desk, and looked at the screen one last time. Numbers kept running, leaving no room for a heartbeat. He shut it down, his voice firm. No more numbers. I'll go see what's really happening. The door opened. The red-carpeted hallway welcomed his steps, but every footfall sounded like a memory. He moved slowly, brushing the wall lined with portraits of past general managers. Under each frame, the motto read, Perfection above all. Elliot stopped, staring for a long moment. No, not perfection, kindness. A cold breeze slipped through the crack of the door, shaking an old photo of the opening team. The glass tapped softly, like the knock of memory. Elliot closed the door gently, eyes steady. The silence in him was no longer disappointment, but resolve. Somewhere below, the elevator bell chimed. metal humming long and low. It reminded him it was time to return to where it all began, where the promises unkept were still waiting. Elliot smiled, tired, but true. The smile of a man about to do the right thing, no matter the cost. When the heart is forgotten, numbers become walls. But when the heart returns, walls become doors. Outside the window, the city lights trembled, like that old promise awakening again. And Elliot's footsteps began the journey he once vowed to take. The sky dimmed into the pale gray of late afternoon. Light in Elliot's office faded, leaving only a small glow across the desk. He sat still, eyes on the watch around his wrist, a gift from the 20th anniversary ceremony. The hour hand kept moving, yet he felt time inside this room had stopped. Elliot removed the watch, set it gently on the table. The ticking second hand sounded like the heartbeat of a life already lived. He loosened his tie, fingers brushing the silk fabric, a symbol of power that now only made it hard to breathe. Every motion, slow, but deliberate. His reflection appeared in the faint light of the mirror. Silver hair, deep lines near his eyes, yet a small fire still alive beneath. On the coat rack hung an old porter's suit, still sealed in its cover. He unzipped it, inhaled deeply. The scent of aged fabric mixed with time made his chest tremble. It was the uniform he had worn on the hotel's first day, when he was just a bellboy and still believed that every greeting could warm the world. He slipped it on. The shoulders fit tighter now, but the feeling returned like blood to the heart. Elliot looked into the mirror again, his eyes softening. A voice rose in his mind, calm and steady. The founder disappears, the servant returns. A faint smile crossed his lips, not the smile of revenge, but of a man returning to truth. He buttoned the coat, straightened his collar, and slid a new badge into his pocket, Eli Kane. A name shortened from his own, a quiet reminder that even in disguise he remained himself. He left the office and stepped into the silent hallway. No one noticed the man in a porter's suit walking through the top executive floor. Elliot pressed the elevator button, watching the numbers descend, from management level down to staff. Each floor felt like a rung down, from power back to humanity. The HR office was nearly empty. A young secretary looked up, surprised. "Sir, are you here to apply for a job?" Elliot nodded softly. "If you still need a porter." She hesitated, then reached for a form. "We actually do, but do you have any experience?" "A little." He smiled, a smile that somehow made her feel safe, though she couldn't explain why. When the file reached Darren, he barely glanced at it. Eli Kane. Sounds familiar. Then he waved a hand. "We're short on bellboys. Start tonight." Elliot bowed slightly. "Yes, sir." Inside, he heard a quiet sound, like a door to the past opening again. That evening, Elliot stood in the side lobby, simple uniform, name tag glinting under the warm lights. Guests passed by, unaware of the man with the straight posture and calm eyes. Lily at the reception desk looked up and froze for a moment. Something in his gaze felt familiar, a serenity she had only seen in the old photos of the Hall of Honor. But she said nothing, just smiled gently and nodded. "Welcome to the Halston Grand." Elliot's voice was low and warm. "Thank you. I'm just here to learn how to serve again." The words were soft as air, yet they made Lily pause. Something in his tone made her want to ask more, but reason told her to stay quiet. She watched him disappear behind the columns, his back straight, his presence calm. That night, as the hotel glowed in golden light, Elliot stood near the elevator's shadow. He watched staff rushing past, the sound of shoes, radios, forced laughter. The old world he once built was still there, but changed. No warmth, only a machine polished to perfection, cold and mechanical. Elliot tightened his hand, feeling the rough fabric of his gloves. He knew this wasn't an experiment. It was a final lesson for himself, to see if he still had the courage to face the wound he had caused. Sometimes, to save a place that's rotting inside, you must step down from the throne and enter through the back door. Not to punish, but to listen to what power once made you forget. From afar, the grand lobby clock chimed, each note slow and heavy. Elliot looked up, the light reflecting in his eyes. Every strike counted like a beat toward homecoming. A homecoming that would change everything. The grand lobby of Halston shone like a dazzling stage. Every crystal light reflected 100 smiling faces, yet no one truly looked into anyone's eyes. Smiles had become the second uniform here. Greetings, a mechanical reflex. Guests entered, perfume and power thickening the air. Staff bowed slightly, their perfect smiles tightening their jaws. But beneath the golden light, Elliot saw what others missed. Tired, fearful eyes. A waiter slipped, water spilling across the carpet. Before he could bend down, Darren's voice snapped through the radio, sharp as a blade. Never bow too low in front of guests. Start again. The boy flushed red, trembling as he reset the tray. No one helped. No one dared. Melissa walked past, smile fixed, clipboard in hand. Sweat dotted her forehead, her eyes scanning like prey sensing a predator. She whispered to a colleague. Be careful. Darren's watching every second of the cameras. Victor overheard, his voice quiet but firm. Just do what your conscience says. Melissa glanced at him, gratitude mixed with defeat. Conscience doesn't show up on the KPI sheet, Victor. Elliot stood near the elevator, holding a guest's luggage, silently observing. He listened to each greeting, every line repeating like a broken record. Welcome to Halston Grand. Enjoy your stay, sir. May I assist you? Every word correct, yet soulless. Darren strode across the lobby, radio in hand, voice raised to prove control. I don't want anyone standing still. Every 3 minutes, movement, a smile, a greeting. A staff member reached for water. Darren pointed instantly. No breaks during peak hours. If you're thirsty, swallow dry. The air thickened. Shoes, radios, telephones, colliding like metallic rain on cold marble. Elliot bowed to a guest, but his eyes lingered on the faces. A young waitress smiled until her lips trembled. An older porter hid shaking hands behind his back. The people who once took pride in this place now looked like puppets obeying fear. Victor approached quietly. I've never seen Halston this cold. Elliot asked softly. When did it become like this? Since the founder disappeared, Darren believes he's the heir. He looked up at the chandeliered ceiling, eyes heavy. He forgot that respect can't be commanded. Elliot studied him for a long moment, voice calm and steady. You still remember what real service means? Victor nodded faintly, a small, weary smile. I do, but not everyone dares to show it. A guest called out loudly. Darren turned at once, face shifting into a plastic smile. We apologize for the delay, sir. The words stretched like a rope tightening around everyone's necks. Elliot felt the chasm between two worlds, those who served with heart and those who only performed service. Melissa approached, clipboard in hand. Mr. Darren, the staff on the 3rd floor requested 10 minutes to rest. They haven't eaten since morning. Darren laughed. There's no such concept at Halston. Tell them to eat after guests leave. But they've been here over 12 hours. Are you questioning my orders? She fell silent, bowed, and walked away. Elliot watched her go, a chill rising in his chest. He once thought luxury was the light of hospitality. But now, it was the mask of fear. A staff member greeted a passing guest with a crooked smile. The guest nodded without looking. The girl exhaled, eyes glistening, then turned toward the glass doors. In the reflection, Elliot saw himself, the man who once dreamed this place would feel like home. Now it looked like a crystal prison. Darren's voice cracked again through the radio. Don't thank guests before they leave. They need to feel we control the space. Elliot closed his eyes, took a breath. He knew. Something here had died long ago. His voice echoed quietly in his mind. This isn't service, it's submission. From the front desk, Lily glanced toward him, startled by the words. But Elliot only smiled, bowing to another guest. That smile was real, amid dozens of rehearsed ones. In the perfection of marble and crystal, Elliot understood. A hotel can shine with light, but when the human heart goes dark, every glow turns cold. And in that moment, one thought flickered within him. To understand how Halston lost its soul, he would have to go deeper and listen to fear with his own ears. The night was thick with light and the scent of expensive wine. The grand lobby pulsed with clinking glasses and jazz music woven through the laughter of VIP guests leaving the banquet. Lily stood by the reception counter, both hands steadying a tray of champagne flutes glowing in gold light. She smiled, hiding the fatigue of a long shift. A middle-aged man in a black suit, collar slightly crooked, approached with a drunken grin. The logo of a financial sponsor glittered on his chest. His voice came half playful, half commanding. "One more glass for me, young lady. Your best." Lily bowed slightly. "Yes, sir." She poured slowly, the tray tilting a little, but the man's hand swayed with the wine, and champagne spilled down his sleeve. The sound of glass hitting the table rang louder than usual. Heads turned. The man looked down, his face flushing with alcohol and pride. "What have you done? Do you know how much this jacket costs?" Lily bowed lower, voice small. "I'm so sorry. Let me clean that for you." He jerked his arm back, eyes full of contempt. "No need. People like you shouldn't touch me." The lobby froze. Darren, standing a few meters away, stepped in instantly. "What's going on here?" The guest pointed at Lily, his voice tight. "She spilled it on me. No discipline at all." Darren glanced at the wet stain on the jacket and switched to a sweet tone. "My sincerest apologies, sir. Our staff will take full responsibility." He turned to Lily, eyes cold as ice. "Kneel and apologize to the guest." Lily froze, face pale. "Sir, I just—" "No excuses. This is a VIP guest of Halston Grand." Every eye turned to her. Victor clenched his fists from a distance, but Darren was already pressing harder. "If you want to keep your job, apologize now." Lily trembled, lips quivering. She bent down, tears forming. And then Elliot stepped forward. His voice was calm, steady. "Sir, it was my fault." Everyone turned. He spoke slowly, each word clear. "I was standing behind her. The tray tilted when I tried to help. She's not at fault." The air shifted. Darren's eyes narrowed, anger rising. "Eli, do you know what you're saying? You're contradicting your superior." Elliot answered softly but firmly. "I'm just speaking the truth." The guest frowned, waving a dismissive hand. "Forget it. No need to make a scene." Darren forced a laugh, bowing slightly. "Of course, sir. We'll handle it internally." When the guest walked away, Darren turned, voice sharp. "You interfered with management authority. Do you understand the consequences?" Elliot met his gaze, unmoved. "I only thought justice still has a place at Halston." Darren smirked. "At Halston, what stands is policy, not emotion." He pulled out the payroll ledger, scribbling quickly. 1 week's pay deducted. Reason: insubordination. Elliot nodded gently. "If that's the cost of truth, I'll pay it." From across the room, Melissa had watched everything. Her face flushed with anger, but she didn't step forward. Victor looked at Elliot for a long moment, then lowered his head in silent gratitude. Lily still stood frozen, hands clutching her skirt. When Darren left, she stepped closer, her voice trembling. You didn't have to do that." Elliot smiled, soft, kind, so warm it eased her fear for a moment. "Some things, if we don't do them, we stop being ourselves." She bit her lip, eyes shining. "They'll hate you for this. You could get fired." Elliot chuckled quietly, his gaze gentle. "Then I suppose I'm truly afraid." He paused, then added, "The only thing worth fearing is a lie, not the truth." The words stopped her cold. In the chill air, with piano notes floating faintly, she looked at him and saw more than a porter. There was something in his eyes, something that made her believe he had once been someone important. Elliot picked up a cloth from the counter, wiping the champagne from the floor. His hand trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from memory. He remembered doing the same long ago, but back then, pride filled his heart. Now he wiped to remind himself. Halston needed cleansing too. Not with water, but with courage. Not every battle needs to be loud. Sometimes, one quiet act is enough to silence a room. Lily looked at him one last time, whispering, "Thank you for not staying silent." Elliot bowed his head, voice gentle. "Thank you for seeing it." She turned away and he stayed still, eyes fixed on the hallway where Darren had vanished. Inside him, the truth was now undeniable. Fear had become the law here, and he had just chosen to break it. Night settled over the glass roof of the Halston Grand. Hallway lights shimmered across the marble like streams of liquid gold. The hotel still glowed brightly, but its rhythm had slowed. Only footsteps fading and doors closing softly remained. Elliot pushed a luggage cart toward the storage room, his steps quiet as a shadow. In the mirrored corridor, he saw Melissa standing near the staff door, speaking softly with Victor. Her voice was weary, yet steady. "Do you find that new porter strange?" His eyes. Victor nodded, gaze firm but warm. "Yeah, feels like I've seen him somewhere before." Melissa looked down, voice lower. "He reminds me of someone, maybe the founder." She smiled faintly. "Sounds silly. That man vanished long ago." Elliot stopped behind the door, his breath blending with the hum of air through the vent. He listened to them talk about him as if he were an old legend. A man who once gave this place its dignity, then vanished into the shadow of profits and payrolls. Victor's tone softened. Maybe he never really disappeared. Maybe people just stopped recognizing him. Melissa sighed. "Maybe, but Halston isn't the same anymore. Guests still come, money still flows, but the hearts are empty." She paused, glancing around, then whispered, "Have you noticed anything off with Room 7A's accounts? Minibar, laundry, tips, all inconsistent." Victor frowned. "I have. Feels like someone's tampering with the records." "Darren?" "No proof, but every approval goes through his desk." Elliot froze. Room 7A. He remembered that suite, once the royal suite reserved for special guests. Every expense was tracked separately. Whoever could manipulate that section could bend the entire payment system. Melissa continued, voice lower. "And it's not just that. Staff tips are being cut too. Lily said she lost more than half this month." Victor nodded. "I asked HR. They called it a data entry error." Melissa gave a bitter laugh. "Funny how those errors always favor the same person." Elliot's hand tightened on the cart. In the dim light, his eyes carried both grief and quiet fury. Not anger for being deceived, but for watching honest people bled dry. He stepped back before they noticed and slipped away. His footsteps echoed down the hall, steady, urgent. He had once believed that if he built something beautiful, people would protect it with heart. But honesty cannot be shielded by marble. He reached the invoice archive, a small room behind reception. The old lock barely turned. No one paid it much attention. He opened it softly. The glow from his phone revealed piles of papers stacked in neat, forgotten rows. At the top of one binder, bold letters read, "Room 7, a transactions." He flipped through page after page. Rows of numbers repeated, same date, same room, different signatures. Elliot exhaled slowly. "So this is it." He pulled one copy and clipped it aside. The numbers stared back at him, cold, precise, alive with corruption. Outside, Darren's voice blared through the radio, arrogant as ever. "I don't want anyone accessing storage without my approval. Everything goes through me." Elliot turned off the light, slipped the document into his pocket. His silhouette melted into the dim corridor, with only the flicker of bulbs glinting on the floor. As he stepped out, Victor was locking the side lobby door. "Eli, your shift's over." Elliot smiled gently. I'm used to staying late. Victor chuckled, genuinely. You really do remind me of the founder. He used to say that too. Elliot looked at him, eyes deep, steady. Maybe. Those who still believe in Halston never truly left. Victor blinked, puzzled by the strange calm in his tone. Elliot turned away, walking slowly toward the elevator, his chest heavy. His hand brushed the folded paper in his pocket. Those numbers would become the seed of truth. A small seed, but enough to crack the walls of deceit surrounding the Halston Grand. Every secret has its own heartbeat. And if you listen long enough, you'll hear the truth waiting to be born. Night settled over Halston Grand. The soft gold light spread across the cold stone like a thin layer of mist. No more guests, only the quiet roll of luggage wheels echoing through the empty hall. Elliot worked the night shift, the clock on the wall ticking steadily like the tired breath of the building itself. He stood still near the wine storage room, where the light faded into shadow. The door creaked open. Darren stepped in with a stranger in a gray suit, carrying a wooden box engraved with Roselle champagne. The man smiled, his tone low but clear. This month's shipment, just the kind you asked for. Darren's voice was cool. Keep the same price, but add Halston's token of appreciation. The man opened the box, revealing a thick envelope. Darren took it quickly, slipping it into his jacket pocket. No more words, only the soft pop of a bottle breaking the silence, like a period at the end of a familiar sin. Elliot watched from a distance, calm to the point of stillness. Every motion, every word, every detail was engraved into his mind. No need for cameras. Memory itself was the truest record. He understood now, truth doesn't rely on lenses, it survives through patience. Moments later, Darren left, his footsteps sharp against the marble. Elliot turned toward the lobby, where faint light still glowed from the reception desk. On a nearby bench, Lily sat curled, her hands covering her face. Her voice was small, breaking softly. I used to love this job. The words fell into the air like salt dissolving into expensive wine. Elliot paused, not moving closer yet. He looked at her, the reflection of so many who once believed in the meaning of their work, until it was drained away by cold commands. He stepped quietly, placing a clean towel on the counter. Beside it, a small folded note. No name. Just a few words written in a firm hand. Don't lose your grace. It's your crown. Lily looked up at the sound of fading footsteps. She read the note again and again, then held it tight. Tears fell, but they no longer trembled. Her sadness turned into something quieter and brighter. Elliot returned to the lobby, staring out through the glass doors. Outside, the city slept. Headlights glided across the marble like streaks of memory. He remembered the early years when the hotel was small. How he would walk every floor each night, checking blankets, water, and light. He used to teach the staff that service wasn't about bowing, it was about sharing dignity. And now, in this same place, dignity was being sold for envelopes of wine. Lily's voice came softly behind him. You wrote that note, didn't you? Elliot didn't turn. I only reminded you of something everyone knows, but sometimes forgets. She hesitated, then said quietly, Thank you, I won't forget. He nodded, smiling gently. Keep your kindness, it'll make you stronger than fear. She walked away, her figure fading into the light. Elliot watched her go, his heart heavy yet at peace. Sometimes, the first victory of a revolution isn't overthrowing someone. It's keeping one person's faith alive. He sat on the marble steps, took off his gloves, and rubbed his calloused hands together. Cold, yet warm from within. Each finger trembled slightly, as if rewriting something in memory. A soft breeze drifted through, carrying the faint chime of glasses from the distant bar. Elliot smiled faintly. He knew, tonight was the beginning of a quiet rebellion. No speeches, no meetings, no declarations. Only humanity and truth beginning to bloom in the smallest corners of Halston Grand. He looked up at the glass ceiling, where pale light shimmered like a wandering star. then whispered to himself, "A building is only truly grand when its heart still knows how to bow with grace." His words melted into the air, carried by the wind. A building slept in gold and silence, while one man stayed awake in the dark, remembering everything. That would soon change it all. Morning returned to Halston Grand, but in that brightness, something heavier than fatigue lingered. The smiles of the staff no longer reached their eyes. The sound of keycards beeped in rhythm, like the pulse of fear itself. Melissa stood in the corner of the HR office, a report in her hand. Her voice was calm, but drained. "I can't sign off on cutting their overtime hours. They've been here more than 12. The shift supervisor shrugged. "Darren's orders. No budget." Melissa clenched her fist, holding back her anger. "Budget doesn't come from human exhaustion." The door opened. Darren walked in, that cold smile fixed on his face. "I hear you have concerns about our new policy. I just think Halston used to respect its people." Darren tilted his head, voice low but sharp. "Respect doesn't pay the power bill. You should learn silence before someone replaces you." Melissa said nothing, just lowered her gaze. He turned away, leaving the air thick and bitter behind him. She exhaled softly, whispering to herself, "This isn't a hotel anymore, it's a machine." By afternoon, Victor received a transfer notice. He read it once, then looked around the room. Night shift from now on. No reason, no explanation. Lily looked up, startled. Why would they do that? Victor smiled faintly. "Because I still tell the truth." Elliot heard the news inside the supply room. He folded a towel, speaking quietly to himself. He's not reckless, he's systematic. He knew Darren didn't act on impulse. Every demotion, every warning, every silence had logic. The logic of control. No one was allowed to stand outside the circle of fear. That evening, Elliot pretended to clean the conference hall. He saw Darren walking with a woman in a dark suit, a supplier. They exchanged a few words, then slipped out to the balcony behind the bar. The light didn't reach there, but Elliot saw the familiar movement of hands. An envelope changed owners. A smile. A handshake. And then, nothing happened, as if nothing ever did. Elliot bent down to pick up a glass, his chest heavy. It's not a mistake, it's a habit. He began to understand the structure of the rot, moving quietly inside the walls of what he once called home. Later that night, when the lobby went silent, Elliot sat in the staff lounge and opened a small notebook. He wrote every detail, date, time, location, delivery names. Each line is like a thread weaving toward the heart of truth. Then he pulled out an old phone and switched on the recorder. Darren's voice echoed faintly through the hall radio. "Anyone who mentions overtime will be marked as lacking team spirit." Elliot pressed save. One file. One piece of evidence. The next day, he carried a small camera hidden in his porter's pocket. No one noticed. Everyone was used to his quiet precision. When Darren signed the next delivery invoice, a faint flash blinked from Elliot's coat button. Just one instant, enough to capture the moment that could shake the whole system. From across the lobby, Lily saw him and walked over, whispering, "What are you doing?" Elliot smiled gently. "Just keeping the things they want to forget." She looked at him, eyes a mix of fear and respect. "Aren't you afraid?" "Of course I am, but if everyone is afraid, there'll be nothing left to believe in." Night fell again. Victor entered the lounge, a cup of coffee in hand. "Melissa's been called to Darren's office. It's not looking good." Elliot nodded. "She's strong. You can't extinguish a fire with threats alone." Victor sat down, lowering his voice. "You know, I once saw Darren adjust the security cameras. Some blind spots, deliberate ones. That's where he meets the suppliers." Elliot's eyes deepened. "So he erases his tracks. But every system has a crack." He opened his notebook, flipping through pages until he reached the newest photo. Darren, smiling, shook hands with the man in the gray suit. Beneath it, Elliot had written a single line. "He's not careless. He's methodical." Elliot closed the notebook, eyes lifting to the high ceiling, glowing with warm light. From the outside, Halston Grand still looked flawless, like a masterpiece. But only he knew, the cracks were spreading from within. The night was silent again. Only the hum of the vents and the tick of the clock remained. Elliot slipped the notebook into his pocket, stood, and walked toward the narrow stairway. Each step now carried a different sound, no longer a porter's footsteps, but the steady rhythm of a quiet hunter, a man searching for the soul he'd lost. And for the one, this place was about to forget. Morning bathed Halston Grand in gold. The building gleamed like a freshly polished mirror. VIP guests arrived one after another. The front desk moved with machine-like precision. But beneath that perfection, tension stretched thin, ready to snap. A guest's voice broke through the hum. "My watch! It's gone. It was in my suite all night. Who cleaned that room?" Lily scanned the schedule, her hands trembling. "This morning's porter, Elliot Kane, sir." The air tightened. Darren stepped forward, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Eli, anything you'd like to say?" Elliot stood tall, voice steady. "Check the logs." Darren laughed coldly. "You think the system will protect you?" Elliot met his eyes. "I think the truth will." The lobby stilled. Guests turned, waiting to see how it would unfold. Darren stepped closer, raising his voice. "How many times did you clean that room?" "Once." "Did you see the watch?" "No, sir." "You're lying." The words slammed shut like a steel door. Darren lunged, grabbing Elliot by the collar, yanking hard. Buttons popped, breath caught in every throat around them. "Who do you think you are, defying me in front of a guest?" Elliot's eyes didn't waver. No anger, no fear. "The truth doesn't need to argue." Darren shoved him. Elliot fell. A white glove slipped from his hand, rolling slowly across the polished stone. The sound was soft, but it cut the air like glass. Time slowed. Breaths. Footsteps. Heartbeats. Someone gasped, but no one moved. Elliot lay still for a moment, then pushed himself up. Dust clung to his shirt, but his eyes burned clear. He picked up the glove, brushed it off. His voice was low, but carrying farther than any shout. "You just proved who you are." Silence hardened the room. Darren's jaw clenched. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life." Elliot nodded calmly. "Maybe, but at least I'm still myself." Darren's face reddened. "You're fired. Effective immediately." Lily gasped, tears forming. "You can't do that. You have no proof." Darren turned, his tone slicing. "I don't need proof to fire a liar." Victor stepped forward, voice firm. "He's not lying. I checked the cameras. He only took out the trash." Darren snapped. "Quiet. Anyone defending him leaves with him." Elliot looked at them, then smiled softly. "Don't worry about me. A man only loses his job when he still believes power is everything." He turned to Darren, voice calm but cutting. "You've just proven Halston doesn't need honesty, only obedience." Darren laughed, a hard, metallic sound. "Enough! Get out!" "And never come back." Elliot nodded. He picked up his small bag, slipped on his gloves one last time. He turned to Lily, his eyes warm, steady. "Thank you for believing when others stayed silent." She whispered through trembling lips. "Where will you go?" "Somewhere truth is still welcome." He walked toward the main doors. Sunlight spilled over his face. Victor bowed his head, whispering faintly. "He's not just a man." Melissa, standing nearby, answered softly. "No, he's the one who built this place." The revolving doors closed behind him. A gust of wind swept through the lobby, cold, pure. Darren barked. "Erase his name from the records." No one mentions him again. Lily stared at the strip of light left on the marble floor where Elliot had stood. Her voice cracked. "Some people leave a place, but leave behind something no one can replace." Outside, the sun glinted off the gold plaque reading Halston Grand. Elliot stopped, touched its edge, and murmured, Beauty isn't in the sign. It's in how we treat each other. He walked away, white gloves catching the light like a quiet promise. No one inside knew. The man they had cast out was the one who had laid the very stones beneath their feet. But the audience knew. They knew he was coming back. With the silence of a storm, Elliot's small apartment sat in a quiet street, the glow of a street lamp spilling through the window and glinting across an old wooden table. Everything was neat, as if he'd been preparing for this moment all along. On the table, his laptop was open. The pale blue light washed over his face, eyes focused, calm, unblinking. Beside it lay a thick stack of files, receipts, photographs, and recordings. Every piece arranged like a chessboard, he had studied move by move. He opened a new folder and typed 3 words, the Halston file. The cursor blinked slowly, each click of the mouse beating like the pulse of truth ready to break free. He played the first recording. Darren's voice came through, cold, precise. "No overtime. I said that already. Anyone who complains will be replaced." Elliot noted the timestamp, then moved to the next file. A supplier's voice followed. "Same price for the champagne, but the thank you bonus must be bigger." He trimmed the section and labeled it carefully. Next came photos of envelopes, duplicate invoices, and the blurred camera feed from room 7A. Scattered fragments now fitting together into a pattern Halston had tried to bury. The laptop's glow split his face into 2 halves, light and shadow. Within it lived 2 men. The one who once built a hotel from hope, and the one now tearing down its lies with evidence. He opened his worn notebook and wrote in even lines. Timeline, from envelope exchange to overtime cuts. Witnesses, Melissa, Victor, Lily. Proof, invoices, logs, audio. He underlined the final line, his hand trembling slightly. Not from fear, but because the moment had arrived. He played the final video, Darren in the grand lobby, shaking hands with the supplier. He paused at the frame where the envelope changed hands. A second long, yet undeniable. Elliot sat upright, eyes locked on the screen. His voice came soft, almost reverent. He built hotels before. Tonight he built a case. Beside the laptop, a cup of coffee had gone cold. The bitter scent filled the air, like the taste of forgotten years. He opened his email draft, typing the address, Halston Holdings Board, confidential access. In the subject line, he wrote, Internal misconduct evidence, for review only. Then paused. His finger hovered above send. He looked out the window. The city is still alive, headlights drifting by, someone laughing below. Life continued. While in this small room, a quiet war was beginning. He closed the laptop and took a deep breath. 3 hard drives sat locked in the drawer. 1 for the board, 1 for legal counsel, and 1 for himself. Because he knew once the truth came out, not everyone would want to hear it. He looked around the simple apartment, bare walls, 1 framed photograph. It showed the day Halston Grand first opened. Elliot, Melissa, Victor, and the first team are standing under the brand new sign. Their smiles were real then. He touched the frame gently, voice dropping low. That day, we built a hotel so people could feel respected. Now I build again. So they remember what justice means. He reopened the laptop and clicked upload. The progress bar crept upward. 50%, 60, 70. Each number pulsed like a heartbeat of freedom. When it reached 100, the screen flashed. Upload complete. Elliot leaned back, eyes closed. No music. No voices. Just the steady breath of a man who had just started a storm. He whispered, almost a prayer. Justice doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be clear. The light from the laptop glowed against the ceiling, forming a small square, a window of truth. And in that glow, his shadow stood still on the wall. The silhouette of a man who chose the right side, even if it meant standing against the empire he once built. The next morning, the grand hall of Halston glowed beneath the floodlights. Rows of chairs were filled, staff in perfect uniforms, smiles forced into place. It was the regional assembly. Darren sat in the front row beside the branch directors. On stage, the giant screen waited for the presentation signal. Lily adjusted her name tag, her hands trembling slightly. Melissa stood beside her, eyes scanning for Victor. No one spoke. Only the echo of footsteps mixed with the soft background music. Then, the back doors opened. A man entered, black suit, light catching his shoulders. The room froze for a single breath. Lily's name tag slipped from her hand, the sound small but sharp. Melissa's heart stopped. Victor straightened, eyes widening. Elliot Kane walked forward, calm and steady. No porter badge. No white gloves. Only the quiet authority of the man who had built these walls with his own hands. Darren rose, smirking. What is this? A joke? Elliot stopped, setting his laptop on the podium. If it's a joke, it's one that's gone on for far too long. The hall went silent. Elliot opened the laptop and pressed play. The screen lit up. Video footage of Darren accepting an envelope in the dim corner behind the bar. Voices echoed through the speakers. Keep the price the same, but Halston's gratitude must be greater. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elliot's tone didn't change. Next, duplicate invoices. Room 7A. Same signature, 2 payments. And this, the recording of overtime cuts and forged signatures. Darren's voice filled the room, cold and undeniable. There's no overtime. Anyone complaining will be removed. Darren's face flushed crimson. Shut it off. Who gave you permission to do this? Elliot met his eyes, voice low and firm. I did. I'm Elliot Kane, founder of Halston Grand. The silence shattered, yet no one moved. Lily's hand covered her mouth, tears falling freely. Victor bowed his head, fists tight with respect. Melissa stepped forward, her eyes shining. Elliot continued, each word landing like a hammer. Hospitality without humanity isn't hospitality. Halston was never built on fear. It was built on respect. He clicked to the final slide. A still image of Darren shoving him to the floor, the white glove rolling across the marble. The audience held their breath. This is what power looks like when it forgets it was once human. His gaze swept the hall. Profit built on humiliation isn't profit, it's rot. Darren shouted, voice breaking. No one has the right to judge me. Elliot's answer was quiet as air. You already did. 2 security guards approached. Darren backed away, panic rising. You're making a huge mistake. No one spoke. The sound of shoes, the click of cuffs, the door closing behind him. Silence followed, pure and heavy. Then Elliot turned back to the room, his eyes warm and tired. I didn't come back to punish anyone. I came to remind you, we were once better than this. He looked to Melissa. Thank you for keeping your courage. Then to Victor, for never losing your dignity. And finally to Lily, for knowing when to cry. Her voice trembled. I only did what you taught. Don't stay silent when something's wrong. Elliot smiled softly. That's enough to change an entire place. The hall stayed still. Then, one pair of hands began to clap. Victor's. Another followed. Then another. Until the entire room was on its feet, applause rising like thunder, echoing against the ceiling that once silenced so many voices. Elliot bowed slightly, his tone closing the chapter. Halston will never again belong to fear. And if anyone asks what we learned from the darkness, tell them this. Respect is the only foundation worth building an empire on. Lily wiped her tears. Victor nodded. Melissa stood tall, pride returning to her chest. No more false smiles. No rehearsed greetings. Only real people who had just reclaimed the soul of where they belonged. Elliot closed the laptop. The light faded. He stepped down from the stage, walking through the standing crowd. No one stopped him. They stepped aside, creating a path straight to the door. Outside, sunlight filled the corridor. Elliot paused at the golden plaque, ran his hand across it, and whispered, "From today, Halston Grand will live up to its name." And he walked away. As the applause still thundered behind him, leaving a hall flooded with light, a place where people could finally breathe again. With a new kind of pride, news spread faster than the first light of dawn. Within hours of the meeting, the video Elliot had revealed inside Halston Grand appeared on every platform. Headlines flooded the internet. Undercover CEO fired from his own hotel. Millions of views in a single day. Comments rolled like waves. This is the new definition of leadership. He didn't raise his voice, yet the whole world heard him. Justice doesn't need to shout. On every screen, those words glowed like sparks catching wind. People shared the video not just for its twist, but for the way he stood up from humiliation and carried calm like armor. One major paper ran an editorial. "Dignity isn't expensive, but it's the rarest luxury in service today." Television hosts and analysts replayed his every glance, every line. But Elliot appeared nowhere. In his small office, he sat by the window, watching the flow of traffic below. Lily's message arrived first. "The hotel's full again. People are smiling for real, for the first time in years." Victor's text followed. "Thank you for coming back and teaching us where not to bow." Melissa wrote simply, "We start again, with trust." Elliot read each message, a faint smile rising on his face. On his desk lay an open newspaper, a bold headline across the page, "The Halston Reformation." Beneath it, a photo of him shaking hands with employees, light reflecting in the eyes of those who had once been afraid. Emails from hotels around the world filled his inbox. A director from Singapore wrote, "We'd like to join the Respect Initiative. Please share your cultural audit model." A European chain requested collaboration on a new training program, Leadership by Listening. Even a top business school extended an invitation to teach ethics in silence. Elliot replied with one single line, "Change isn't a headline, it's a habit." No logo. No slogan. Just action. He instructed every Halston branch to begin with one event. Employee Listening Day. No speeches, no slides. Just people sitting together, asking simple questions. Who's tired? Who needs help? Who deserves a thank you today? 3 weeks later, media outlets covered the first Respect Initiative gathering. A photo showed Halston staff around a round table. Plain uniforms, no podiums, no cameras. Behind them, a chalkboard read in careful handwriting, "We start with respect." Viewers commented, "No campaign is more beautiful than a team relearning kindness." He didn't seek revenge, he rebuilt culture. Elliot scrolled once, then closed the screen. He didn't need more praise. Because what he hoped for wasn't in applause. It lived in small moments. Lily dared to say no. Victor is protecting a colleague. Melissa is sending an honest email without fear. That evening, he left the office, walking down a quiet alley between two buildings. The wind brushed his shoulders, the smell of coffee drifted from the cafe nearby. A group of Halston staff sat laughing, sharing bread after their shift. One young man noticed him and stood abruptly. "Mr. Kane, thank you for everything you've done." Elliot smiled gently. "Don't thank me. Thank yourself for believing." The young man lowered his head, voice trembling. "I've never seen someone lead through silence." Elliot's smile warmed like early summer sunlight. Sometimes, silence is where truth is heard the clearest. He kept walking, his shadow blending into the crowd. Behind him, laughter rose again, soft and real, like the breath of new faith. Above, the night sky mirrored the city lights. A reminder of one quiet story that made the world pause to remember. That true luxury isn't crystal or silk, but how do we treat each other when no one is watching? And Halston Grand, once a monument of power, had become something humbler, far greater. A symbol of respect. A warm afternoon bathed the 12th floor meeting room in soft gold. Outside, The Halston Grand sign gleamed as if newly polished. Inside, 4 people sat around a round table: Elliot, Melissa, Victor, and Lily. No name tags, no hierarchy, just people. Elliot opened his notebook, voice calm but steady. Today, we begin again, not with rules, but with values. Melissa nodded, a folder in hand. I've totaled the amount of tips cut over the past 3 months. Elliot asked quietly. How much? She glanced down. 42,000. He nodded. Return it all. With a written apology from the board. No speeches, only action. Victor leaned forward. What about those transferred or fired for speaking up? Elliot's eyes held his. They'll be invited back. Same roles, plus every hour they lost. Lily smiled faintly. And those who stayed will learn to listen again. Elliot took a folded page from his pocket and placed it at the center of the table. Handwritten at the top, Human Dignity Program. Beneath it, 5 clear lines. 1. Respect is the default. 2. Listen before reacting. 3. Mistakes are fixed through learning, not fear. 4. Bonuses will never outweigh kindness. 5. Leaders must spend at least 1 day each month working alongside their team. Melissa read them slowly, eyes bright. Respect by default. Elliot nodded. No exceptions. The air felt light but charged. Victor chuckled softly. It's been a long time since a meeting didn't end with someone shouting. Lily teased, smiling. Because today, the boss knows when silence is strength. Elliot's smile deepened. That's the only way to hear a place's real heartbeat. Days later, the lobby glowed again. Fresh flowers lined the reception desk. No tension, just the scent of baked bread and fresh coffee. Soft piano drifted from the corner, tender and familiar. Guests paused to smile, because the staff were smiling too. Not rehearsed smiles, real ones. In the kitchen, steam rose from a pot of soup. Knives tapped rhythmically against wood. Victor washed his hands and turned to Lily. I can't remember the last time I heard laughter back here. She laughed. Probably before fear made the menu. Melissa walked past, hanging a small sign on the wall. Here, every name matters. She turned, proud. A little reminder, so no one forgets why we started. Elliot watched from a distance. Each voice, each step, each breath seemed part of a rhythm reborn. Halston now glowed, not with chandeliers, but with kindness. That evening he met with the new leadership team, 12 people from every department. His tone was slow, deliberate. We can't change the whole world, but we can teach it how to change. He pointed to the first line of the program. Respect by default. No need to rewrite it, just live it. Victor asked, what if someone new doesn't get it? Elliot replied, then we don't punish them. We show them the difference between fear and dignity. Silence filled the room, listening silence. Not one of control, but of understanding. They looked at him not as a CEO, but as a teacher. Lily spoke softly. I think, for the first time, Halston knows what freedom feels like. Elliot turned toward the window, the city lights stretching below like a golden sea. Not freedom, remembrance. Remembering how kind we used to be. The next morning, a new sign hung in the main lobby. No gold, no marble, just simple words on a white panel. Respect by default. Below it, a smaller line read, Human Dignity Program, born from silence. Visitors stopped to read. Some took photos. Some just smiled. A little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mom, what does respect mean? The mother whispered. It means being kind, even when no one tells you to. Elliot overheard as he passed, his gaze softening. He knew then, what they were building wasn't just a hotel. It was a quiet reminder to the world that compassion never goes out of style. That night, piano notes floated through the lobby once more. Lily found Elliot standing by the marble floor, watching the lights dance. What are you thinking about? He smiled gently. I'm thinking. Halston finally remembers how to breathe like a human. She looked at him, eyes glimmering. And you? Do you feel lighter now? He nodded. Only because this place lives again, and in that, I'm forgiven. Laughter echoed through the warm air, blending with the melody. And so the long journey ended. Not with a victory, but a beginning. A beginning built on something stronger than success. The quiet faith that when respect is planted right, it grows into happiness for everyone. Morning light poured through the tall glass panels of Halston Grand, spilling gold across the marble floor like a quiet blessing. The air felt new. The smell of warm bread and coffee mingled with laughter, real laughter, from people who had once been afraid to speak. Good morning, echoed through the hallways, gentle and bright like the first notes of a song. Elliot sat on the old bellboy chair near the entrance, the same one he used years ago. The leather was worn, but its shape remained, just like Halston's memory. He watched Lily open the door for a guest, saw Victor lifting luggage for a small family, saw Melissa hand out timesheets with a smile. No more forced grins. No more bowed heads. Every greeting now was honest. Lily stopped beside him. You've been here since early morning? Elliot smiled, eyes still on the lobby. I just wanted to hear the sound this place used to make. She sat down next to him, sunlight catching on the marble column. I still wonder, why did you come back? Elliot tilted his head slightly, voice low and calm. To remember what this place was built for. Outside, a guest bowed to thank a doorman. A child laughed as a porter tossed his cap into the air and caught it with ease. Everything is simple, yet perfect. Elliot's eyes lifted to the new sign above the reception desk. The words reflected softly in his pupils. Respect by default. No decoration. No spotlight. Just a reminder that respect is where every good thing begins. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. Peace rose in his chest like distant piano music. Halston Grand lived again, not through profit, but through dignity. No more fear, only self-respect walking freely through every hallway. He opened his eyes, smiled at Lily. You see, this place never needed luxury to be beautiful. It just needed people to treat each other the right way. Her eyes shimmered. I think, now I understand why they call you the man who built Halston. He shook his head gently. No, I'm just the man who reminded them this building has a soul. The sun climbed higher, flooding the glass facade. Light hit the gold logo, the Halston Grand, and scattered across the lobby like a sacred glow. The piano played softly in the corner. A melody once forgotten is now alive again. No one spoke. They simply listened, letting their hearts match the rhythm of a place reborn. Elliot looked across the room, eyes warm and bright. In that moment, everything he'd lost returned. Faith, compassion, and the quiet pride of being called a servant. In a world that sells luxury, remember, dignity is the rarest currency. Sunlight filled the room, painting his face in gold. A guest walked up and smiled. Good morning, sir. Elliot's smile deepened. Good morning, and welcome home. The piano's final note faded into the golden air. If you've ever seen someone keep their kindness even when they hold power, leave a comment, respect by default. Because it isn't just a slogan. It's how we keep the world worth coming back to. Some people build with steel and glass. Others build trust, one small act at a time. Elliot didn't just save a hotel. He restored the meaning of being human. In a world where luxury is sold through lights and rehearsed smiles, dignity remains the truest form of wealth. And respect, the foundation of everything good. Look around you. At work, in class, in your own home. Is there someone choosing silence to protect fairness? Someone staying kind even when no one's watching? If this story made you believe that respect can change a system, leave a comment, respect by default. Share this video with someone you know, someone who quietly chooses what's right. And if you want to keep walking beside those who lead with humanity, subscribe to Undercover Stories. Because sometimes, one small act, one timely word, is enough to light up the whole world.